We're at item 11.4 on our agenda, funding allocation for the Rosemary Rec area.
Thank you, Madam Reeve. So I have in front of Council some recommendations for allocating funding to the Rosemary Recreation area. Many of you will know we have been working throughout 2021 to try and get an updated recreation agreement in place with the Village of Rosemary. We've made some progress. We have not finalized the agreement. So I reached out to my counterpart there at the Village of Rosemary and said, you know, we're running out of time in the year. I know the Ag Society, will be eager to receive some funding for the year. So how do we move forward on establishing some amount? So I went back to our existing agreement, and it does have the provision that each council can determine the amount that they contribute to the rec board annually. So I said, well, let's do what we had proposed in the agreement and each throw $2,500 into the pot. She confirmed that she'll take that request to their council on October 13th. That would give the rec board up there $5,000 to allocate out to the various groups there, take care of them. And then we had proposed during negotiations that each of the village and the county direct funds to the Ag Society on their own. Previously, that money was coming from the rec board. This is one of the items that we were hung up on. The county had proposed 50% share, and that's where conversations kind of stalled out in our recreation agreement conversation. So I'm recommending that we allocate that 50% share to the Ag Society on the same basis as we've allocated funds to the Ag Society and Duchess. It's based on 50% of their net operating costs for the past 5-6 years, not including grants or fundraising in those dollars. So the total amount would be $2,500 to the rec board, $22,000 to the Rosemary Community Ag Society, total of $24,500. We had included in our budget $28,768. So the funds are there available to allocate, and this will help that rec area move forward while administration and councils still figure out the final details on an updated agreement. Or we might find out that the current agreement works just fine. It's practical too.
Questions?
Maybe just a comment more than anything. Glad to be able to put this to rest. We've been dancing around in circles for about 4 months that I've been involved. So I would like to see this motion approved, and I would make a motion to approve option 1.
Thank you, Madam Reeve. Just wondering what, when it comes to the Ag Society and the $2,500 for the rec, is there reconciliation of those expenses that are reviewed by your staff or yourself? As far as, you know, and the only reason I'm bringing that up is because we have struggled with getting some information back from that community when it comes to some of their reporting. So I'm just curious that you're satisfied that everything that's going to be spent is accounted for in their balance sheets.
Yeah, one of the things that we asked for during negotiations was the historical financial statements for both the Village of Rosemary, their recreation operating costs, as well as the Rosemary Community Ag Society. And I did get the financial statements from the Ag Society and was able to kind of do the quality assurance on the calculation of that 6-year net operating cost number. So I'm pretty comfortable with it, and it works out pretty close to what that Ag Society was getting previously. You know, it's around that 24,000. So we're kicking in 22. I imagine the village is probably going to have a contribution in as well. They typically contributed about 4,000 into the rec board funding. So if they pitch 2,500 into the rec board now, they'll have the balance available to give to the Ag Society with no increase on their budget line.
Ellen and Tracy?
Go ahead, Tracy.
So my question is, is there still negotiations being carried on to finalize the rec agreement?
I'll be honest, I'm quite comfortable operating under the current agreement that lets us set these amounts annually as each council each year. We've been able to, if this motion gets passed, we're funding it based on the philosophy that we wanted, and it's operating under the current agreement. So I think unless there's some movement on the village's side, I don't know that it's worth anybody's time continuing down that path. Both sides have kind of made their point. The county wanted to be at a 50-50 share on things. The village's point was they can't afford a 50% share. Our committee said, that's fine, you don't have to put in 50, but we're only putting in 50. So you can figure out what you're doing with where you're going to go in that other space of 50%. If it's 13%, 20, you do what you can do, but we're only going into a max of 50%. And the framework exists for us to do that now without the updated agreement.
Great, thank you.
Ellen?
No, not at this time. No, thank you. No comment at this time.
Any other questions or a motion? Oh, Kelly. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. No problem. Item 11.5, potential for change in requirement for council code of conduct.
So we have received information that indicates that the Department of Municipal Affairs, or at least the Minister of Municipal Affairs, is considering making some changes in the legislation that required municipalities to adopt council code of conduct bylaws. I guess we're just wondering if this is something that council is wanting to take an early position on and submit a letter of concern to the minister. We have received copies of correspondence from another municipality, and it has been discussed, from what we understand, as some other functions, but there isn't anything official that has come out on this yet. So it's just a question of whether council wants to take some early action on what could be some direction that the Department of Municipal Affairs is considering at this time.
So, Lane, aside from the letter from the one municipality, there's no other factual information?
We've come across information in the press that indicates that AUMA was approached by the Department of Municipal Affairs, and I think that Matt had attended a function as well where the minister was present, and there were certainly some questions raised by other individuals that were participating in that event. Matt would probably be in a better position to speak to that, but again, I don't think that there's been anything formal written correspondence from the department that indicates that this is being officially considered.
Yeah, so at the Alberta Rural Municipal Administrators Association conference, that's a mouthful, Minister McIver was there for a Q&A session, and the CAO of Lethbridge County, Ann Mitchell, actually posed the question to him why they would consider getting rid of the council code of conduct. Anne has just finished her master's through Royal Roads, and she did her dissertation on the council-CAO relationship, of all things. And, you know, it was her position, and I think a solid one, that having a council code of conduct will only serve to enhance that relationship and to set a standard for what is expected of council members. I mean, you guys have all been really well behaved, and you really haven't had to be in a position to hold each other to account. I think you don't have to look too far to see other councils who have been in tougher spots having to hold their members to account. And the council code of conduct is really that framework that sets the tone for what kind of behavior and such is expected of you as a councillor as you represent ratepayers. So the minister's response to Anne's question was, you know, he just didn't think it had any teeth, and if it doesn't have any teeth and councillors aren't willing to hold each other accountable, then what's the point of having it? We can cut it, and it reduces red tape. I don't think that sentiment was shared by most of the administrators in that room. But like Lane says, we haven't received official communication from the department on this looking to engage, but we have received one letter to date. And we thought an outgoing council would be in a great position to take a position on whether you think a code of conduct is a good part of the MGA legislation.
So there was no indication of why he thought it had no teeth? Has no one used it, or?
He didn't elaborate.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Your thoughts? Brian and Lionel?
Well, I guess I'm sort of, well, you look at something like this, there's nothing in front of us. So what do you base your, like if there was a request from municipal affairs to say we need some input as far as your code of conduct policy or whether we want to change it or remove it, I could offer some, you know, feedback on that. But with that gap there, it's like, well, what are we doing? Are we trying to instigate something, or, you know, and I think I follow the thought process as far as these councils, but I think it's a little premature. So I personally don't think there's a point in doing this, like in supporting either one of those letters or something to municipal affairs that really they're not even delving into yet. At least I would hope that if they're gonna, before they brought in the code of conduct that we passed for ourselves, there was some indication that that's the route they wanted to go down. And we don't have that. So I'm sort of like, why is this even here?
Well, that is an option. There's two options there. To send a preemptive letter, which, as Matt pointed out, would be from councils like ours that a large group might not be back together, or to defer any action at this time. Lionel?
Well, I kind of reiterate what Brian said, and also, you know, this might be for the new council, it might be a good education for them, good way to start. So I would stay away from myself from this council.
Any other opinions on it? Anne-Marie?
Yeah, I'm okay with waiting till there's an official request, but I agree with Lionel that it's good to have that code of conduct. You know, for new councillors coming in, it's good to have the reminder that you're part of the team, and if a decision is made here, that's the decision that you represent as full council. And you know, those things are good for all of us to read and be reminded of. But for now, for the province to want to change, well, let's wait for it.
Matt, in the past, councils had codes of conduct before. It was, this was an enforced, had to have. But there's no reason to not have one.
Right. By the province removing it from the MGA, it just removes that legislated requirement for council to have it. It wouldn't prevent you from having it anyways.
Because I think it is an informative, instructive document that may not have teeth, and perhaps if, I don't know, I'm fine leaving it too. Anybody object to that? So we'll just sort of defer it for now. And if it comes to fruition, then I guess, as Anne-Marie pointed out, it might be a good exercise for a new council too, to think about whether or not, and if McIver thinks it has no teeth, why doesn't he look at more teeth? I don't know. Okay, COVID-19 update, that's just on the agenda all the time now, sort of, is it, Matt?
Yeah, that's there. I had kind of given a brief update to some of the council members before we started our session. I think for the benefit of all, I'll just give an update on where we're at with the vaccination incentive program that we put into place. So you'll recall we offered a $100 incentive to our employees to disclose their vaccination status by October 5th. That date has come and passed, and we are at 78% of our full-time employees, so 47 out of our 60 full-time employees are fully vaccinated. So that's great news. The disappointing news is the 13, right? So I was really hoping that we'd be a lot higher than that. I've reached out to Lane, our Director of Corporate Services, and Sherry, our Corporate Health and Safety Manager, to discuss next steps of what we might need to do for our staff to be sure that both employees and the people we serve are kept safe. So we'll be working on that over the next week or so to determine where we go next. I've observed, and I think the writing's on the wall. You see the province coming through mandating their public servants to be vaccinated. You've seen the federal government recently, Town of Banff, University of Lethbridge, Medicine Hat College. To fly, now you've got to be fully vaccinated. I think the writing's on the wall that vaccinations are safe, they're effective, they're our way out. And we as public servants have a responsibility to be safe and to provide safe services for the people that we serve. So I was hoping I could avoid going down a policy road, but it looks like I'm going to be going down that road and looking at the least intrusive things that we can do to keep the operations going and keep people safe. So that's the update there.
You know how many there are for sure, but you don't know how many there aren't for sure.
We have, our HR has reached out to each employee. So we've got a response. I think there's only 4 who gave no response, who said things like no comment, or so they didn't indicate one way or another. We have 8, I think it's 8 hard no's. So we've got great data, and we know, we'll be evaluating by position what the risk is. If you're a grader operator or a truck driver, well, you're alone most of the day by yourself. Maybe you just stay out of the office for the next period of time until things die down. If you're a minibus driver, you work front counter and you're interacting with the public, well, we might need to reassess what engineered controls we have in place. Like, we've got the plexiglass, we're masked. Is that enough? And that's what Sherry's going to be helping us out with, just to make sure we've got all the bases covered. I mean, if we have COVID in the workplace and it's transmitted here, worst case scenario, we end up having WCB claims on COVID, and those expenses follow us for a long time. It's a reality. COVID's just been expensive administratively, responding to it. It's stressful for everybody, right? The vaccinated and unvaccinated alike. I think everybody's just looking for that silver lining of getting out of things. So I'm really hopeful that whatever policy response we need to put in place, whatever controls we need to enhance, it's just for a short period of time, because everybody that we have working for us at the county, we need everybody that we've got, right? So I want that message to be clear. We need everybody, we want everybody, but we also want y'all to be safe. And not just here, in the community, in your families as well, right? So that's kind of where we're at with COVID.
So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I would love to hear what kind of protection or what kind of thoughts you're having around new council coming in. Like you saw our vaccination cards this morning here. And so will that be happening with new councillors coming in?
You don't want to put me on the spot, Jesus.
Well, it's as much for me as it is for the listening public.
Yeah, I would really encourage all candidates who are running in our municipal election to be vaccinated. It will make your lives easier. I mean, the world's just making it harder and harder for those who are unvaccinated. We received notice from RMA that the RMA convention in November will be held in person, and they want to see your vaccination status or a negative test, kind of a thing. So the negative test is really just such an onerous idea to me. I mean, so if we're gonna have the negative test as something here, we've got 12 people, so now we've got to do 36 tests twice a week. Somebody's got to get those, confirm it, be here to verify at different hours. I don't know that it's a solution. So the negative test, I don't know that I would do for staff, but maybe if you've got some counselors, new counselors coming on who are dead set against being vaccinated, that might have to be something that we look at if you want to attend in council chambers. I'm not sure how your CAO enforces that against for his employer, but maybe there's going to be some interesting conversations. But I would encourage all candidates get the jab. It'll just make life that much easier for all of us.
Other questions or comments? Ellen?
Just for the record, that is not the reason I am not present at council today. I just did not get the memo that most councillors were going to be there in person. Prior, we got from staff that the rest of October, November, were going to be virtual online. So that's the reason I'm online today, because I did not realize, other than yesterday, I only heard that perhaps 3 were thinking of going in person. I was not aware most of the council was going to be present. So this is not the reason I am virtual.
Yeah, and there was no memo, Ellen. I think people just decided to come in. Some of us have been coming in for a long time, and we just couldn't quit today.
And that's fine with me, but I just wanted to reiterate that I'm not one of the anti-vaxxers, if you will.
Fair enough. Okay, any more questions for Matt? Seeing none, we'll move on. Assessment model changes, which continues to stay on our agenda as well. Interesting how we're hearing about some pretty good prices for oil and for gas, which is awfully good news, I think, for our community and greater community. So it'll be interesting to see how that all pans out. Councillor payment sheets for September. Any questions, comments? We have, no, there's no motion there. Does that mean there were no changes? I didn't even look. There were changes? Okay, so we need a motion for. Kelly moves. Motion for approval of any changes in the council payment for September. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. You bet.
Just, I want to comment on this process from where I used to work and where I work and this position. This practice never took place, and this is a practice that I hope will continue. And I want to thank Anne-Marie and Clarence both for the work that they put into this. I can tell you it's not an easy job. Well, at least for me, it's not an easy job to do this editing of other people's work. But it is a fruitful exercise, and I want to commend the two of them. And Tracy, you were on it last time. I don't know who else has been on it over the years, but thank you for the experience and your work involved with this committee.
And I would echo that sentiment 1,000 times, because I have refused to be on that committee for my whole 17 years. I have a hard enough time keeping track of my own compensation. However, I was part of the council, along with Anne-Marie, that initiated the whole concept of having a peer review of expenses and compensation, which I think was a great idea. Actually, it was Wayne Daniels, Clarence's predecessor, who came up with that, and most of us were feeling pretty lost at what we could do with councillors who just said, no, I'm not taking it off my sheet. I went to that meeting. And so that was also when we began the functions of council motion, that to be on that sheet, you needed to have approval. So it's worked out well. And again, thank you to you, all of you that have been involved in that, because I feel blessed to have had you in my life correcting me. Okay. Checks for payment. Payment register. Payment register and the direct debit register are there. Hubie makes a motion to accept the payment register. And just as a comment, I think, Matt, you mentioned that this in fact is not necessary. It's just something we do extra.
Yeah, I had mentioned to council, and I didn't remind you because I didn't get back around to it before this meeting. I've been reviewing a number of the municipal reviews that Municipal Affairs completes. I always just go to the very end of the reports and look for the pro tips on what to and what not to do in a municipality. And I was kind of surprised this one comes up quite often. You don't need to have council approving all of these payment registers. You do need the REIV and the CAO signing off on the register. So there needs to be the review. It just doesn't need to be on your council agenda. And I think the other thing we had talked about as well is payment, approving checks over $350,000. By the point that gets on council agenda, the money's already left the building. The real control in that process is before we ever engage in a contract over 350, we bring that to council for award. So you've already had the opportunity to control that expenditure. We enter into the contract and do the work, and now we're legally obligated to release payment so long as the work has passed specifications, kind of a thing. So in terms of, we talk about lean, and a lot of us are getting through our lean training. We're looking for anything we can take off an agenda or not have to prepare if it's not entirely necessary.
Clarence, did you?
Yeah, I don't always look at it line by line, but I think it's helpful for everybody to know kind of where the money goes. And we may not need to have to do it, and we may not have to approve it, and that's fine with me, but for individuals to kind of get a grasp of, gosh, there's a lot of money, where does it all go? There you have it. And that, I think just for information, it's probably a good thing for council.
Yeah, that's a good point. So keep it on the agenda, but as an information item, forego the motions to approve. You just have it as information that you can educate and get familiar with.
Totally agree. It is interesting. Yeah. Lionel?
I agree 100%, Clarence. Yes, I very much like it on the agenda.
Did we vote on Hubie's motion to accept it? No? All right, we have a motion to accept the payment register. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Question, Kelly?
Did we fine the Village of Rosemary $75 for something? It's, we're paying them $75 and it says Village of Rosemary fines tag 003. It's check number 8631.
That'll likely be one of their bylaw reimbursements that we collect when we issue tickets.
Oh, and then so it was done in the village and they get
and under the agreements with those municipal partners, they do have the right to retain those revenues that are charged through fines.
Thank you. See, learned something. That makes sense.
Request for functions of council? Hubie?
Now our duties are still till the October 28th, right?
Yes, that's the organizational day. And so I suppose, yeah, if you had a meeting even on the 28th before the new council was sworn in, I guess. You could.
Well, it's actually Safe Communities and Rural with the Sabine and Kendra and Josh from the RCMP. They want to go to Bow Slope again for the calf sale on 21st. So they've asked me to join them, so I wondered if that was still okay.
Should we make that a function of council for Hubie? Or is that your committee work?
It's committee work.
Yeah, it's your committee work, so that's good, yeah.
Okay.
I know we have joint services next week, and I think I just got invited to some other thing just now, so there might be some people wanting to have us at last meetings just for our great knowledge, who knows. But there are some meetings that are just rotating through naturally. So the 28th after organizational will be off the hook completely, so right? Well, maybe.
What about that new council mentorship program you guys were talking about?
I'm sure that'll be voted down. Okay, we're at Municipal Services Business with Mark.
Well, good afternoon, Council. You've got my monthly report, so some of the highlights from that, grader operators have been dealing with harvest, dry roads again, washboard, dust. It's the regular concerns being expressed that they do their best to keep up with because we have 1,500 kilometers of gravel road out there and they can't be everywhere at once. So that's been that, but really, we're into October. I'm not going to give the swear word because I'm hoping it's postponed as long as possible, but Monday appears to have it back in the forecast. But if you look at it now, it might not be in the forecast again, but we are preparing for the onset of winter. We are in those final rotation rounds, trying to get things in as best a shape for freeze up. With that, the graders are also ready to respond to snow in the event we get any major accumulation. truck drivers, they completed the gravel program. So that was an extra 22% of the program that completed from the last reporting period. And those trucks as well are ready to respond to that white fluffy stuff that will eventually show up. We do have that forecast, so our trucks are being prepared for the October long weekend, because you just never know what's going to happen, and being prepared is more of my motto of things than having to ask for forgiveness by not being there. So they're working on that. Gravel road assessments for 2022 are getting pretty close to being wrapped up, so that program will be in design and ready for next spring. And construction progress, things remain in progress in all areas. Rolling Hills, culvert replacements, Range Road 15-1 between 542 and 18-4, Silver Sage Road, shoulder poles in there, and culvert replacements and drainage improvements. Same thing with the half-mile of Range Road 15-0 just west of the office here, north of Silver Sage Road, up to the city limits. Johnson Estates 1, Johnson Estates 2, their work's in progress. I think we will have addressed numerous issues with rainwater and runoff that just wasn't getting anywhere. It was sitting and standing stagnant in roadside ditches. Things look great there, and we're still working on the acquisition of some property to improve the sight lines for motorists. Lots of procedure reviews, and one of the more interesting ones was I talked to council previously about a winter graveling program. We do have an actual procedure from one of our peers. It is very labor intensive. It is very equipment dependent, where you spread a layer of gravel, pile a bunch of snow on it, pack it all down, spread a layer of gravel, pull some more snow, pack it all down to lock it all in place. Don't think we're going to go that way. My direction to operations is let's do the trial on reducing the quantity that we have in our stockpile, particularly the Tilly stockpile, because it's the closest one to the Steveville pit. So we're going to go for 100% of our stockpile in Rolling Hills, because that's the longest haul that we have from an aggregate pit. But in Steveville, we're either going to be looking at starting with a 20 or 30% reduction in what we actually stockpile there this winter. And instead, when we're in our gravel program, we're going to come straight out of Steveville, straight to the road. So we'll see how that works for us. All of this is really weather dependent anyway, because if we spend all of our time plowing snow off roads all winter, we don't really succeed on the stockpile program. Hopefully that's not the kind of winter that we have, knock on wood. But it is extremely weather dependent. So I think that's a good kind of intermediate measure in taking a step forward to reducing our handling of that aggregate and the time invested in it, and seeing what we can actually achieve. I kind of came to that conclusion after reading our peers' procedure, and then really looking at it because the guys were done the gravel program at the beginning of September. They finished in that first week. So how much can we accomplish in road graveling in 3 weeks in the rest of the month of September, maybe even delving into October a week or two? But I don't really want to get past the 15th of October, because that's kind of the firm timeline where winter generally starts to set in. Some years we're fortunate. And I think it's a start. And then we can evaluate from there where we go. And maybe we can even move it to the fact that we eliminate the Tilly stockpiling altogether. And one of the beneficial things behind the Tilly stockpile is the simple fact that we now have an additional 22 kilometers of paved road to drive, rather than 22 kilometers of gravel 3-digit highway between Patricia and Tilly. And that has actually sped our process up immensely. It's removed a lot of road damage and problems that we've had with our equipment driving that road to get to that stockpile, because it was still the most efficient route and direct route, rather than driving pavement all the way around. So that's what I wanted to share with this council before, as it is your last meeting. That's one of those measures that we're going to try to go with, and we'll continue to monitor that and look for improvements. We still have the aggregate resource exploration in the works. Those guys are working on the intrusive excavation of some sources here coming up to determine whether we have quantity or whether we don't, based on some of their desktop review and analysis. Hopefully we find some stuff down south, and maybe we don't need any stockpiles anymore. If that's not the case, we'll have to continue to evaluate our program for efficiencies and see what we can do to alleviate any additional costs that don't need to be part of the program and expenses to our ratepayers. Additionally, we're still waiting for funding, or at least the announcement for funding on the 2.4 kilometers of pathway extending from the county office south to 18.4, which also feeds into that pathway discussion that we're having with the city at getting all the way down to Kinbrook, and that also includes discussions with the Eastern Irrigation District. What else we got? Asset management plans. Kudos to Morgan. She's been rocking those things since the day we turned her loose on it and got her with the training. We've got 5 or 6 of them in a final stage right now. We've still got a couple more to go in municipal services. She's been picking apart some other areas as well. Budget was submitted on the deadline, narratives in, schedule of fees updates complete. We're in a really good position, and I just want to reassure council we'll keep striving for that without you here, so at least without some of you anyway. Yeah, and I too want to express my thanks for the many years that some of you have been here. Some of you actually partook in the interview process of myself, and just want to extend my gratitude for your leadership and your working relationship with me over the years. I greatly appreciate that, so thank you.
You're welcome, Mark. It's a few years ago since you started with us, hey? What year?
2008.
2008.
Told Matt there's 13 more to go, and I'm out of here.
That just seems wrong.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mark, for your interest in all of us and what we're up to and how you can do better for us always. So good luck going forward.
Thank you.
You bet. We need a motion. Oh, we'll do the motion. Get that. Oh, questions. You have questions. Forget, you're not off the hook yet.
I was going to ask if there was a gravel pit close to Dutchess, but I don't think that's proper.
Different department.
But really what I'm asking is...
What a brat.
You can strike that from the record. I was kind of interested in the snow and the gravel bit. Is it in an area that doesn't have Chinooks, or is it down south?
It is in an area that generally doesn't have Chinooks. It's actually in Clearwater County. A peer of mine, former employee of Clearwater County, is now over at Vermilion River, and he can't do the program there either because they can't rely on the snow. And he said, if you tried, you'd probably have a lot of problems with it. I think some more of that discovery, you end up in these general conversations. I remember a general conversation over some people golfing one year about contracting out all grader operators and stuff. And that situation was completely unique as well because they had like 8 or 10 people come to them saying, we want the county work, and these are the rates we're going to throw at you. And I keep tabs on where those rates are at, and they keep going down, but we don't have that demand coming into our office from owner operators wanting the work from us. I feel they're still tied up working for industry on there's lots of oil and gas roads out there, believe me. There's money to be made in some areas, and sometimes it's tight because winter doesn't come and they don't plow snow. But I keep tabs on all of that just to see what works, what doesn't work, and why. And when we got more into that discussion of the winter gravel program, and specifically it was between Terry and him, it come about that it is very snow dependent. And the other part of it is they also have a lot of black dirt roads. So that's where they built roads out of the topsoil that was available to them back in the day. And a lot of those roads just absolutely blow up come summer, come spring. and they try to lock that gravel in on top of it to preserve that road surface rather than losing it come spring thaw. So when we have the general discussion, we hear those things, we need to invest more time to truly figure out what the purpose is, what does it serve there, does it serve us here, doesn't it serve us here? You know, we talk about topsoil, but let's be honest, how much topsoil does this region really have? Because some of the overburden on some gravel pits is this, and we're actually looking at that in our Bassano gravel pit, which is exhausted. There's barely enough topsoil from that pit to spread it across the pit to reclaim it. But that's what you use to reclaim that pit, is what that overburden was. And yeah, we're scratching our heads on that, but man, that was a very cheap resource because you didn't have to do a whole bunch of topsoil stripping to get at it. And I know one specific location that, yeah, there might be a ½ inch of topsoil on top of an aggregate resource, but it's at the far reaches that just doesn't serve us well today in a way, but it's nothing that we need to pursue in the near future either. So yeah, we'll always keep our ears tuned to that and be exploring. And you as council, you know that my AMSA association has a meeting that coincides with fall and spring conventions, and that's where we get together. We have bear pit sessions, we have presentations from municipal perspectives on what we have going on with projects, and that's where we hear some of these things, and we just need to investigate more of them more frequently. But we talked about that to take a leap forward this winter in a way, and that was the short answer once we started getting into the details of it. And it just came to us that let's just shortlist our stockpile and see if we can, how much more we can run direct from the pit. It's trial and error, right?
Two questions. First one was going to be my second, but because you're on gravel, I'll stay on it. Are you prohibited from sourcing gravel outside of the county of Newell? And the reason I say that is because I have driven that road to Bow Island, and I think there is a gravel pit on outside of our county boundaries that is on the south end. And I mean, I don't know if it's available or whatever the situation is. I guess I was just curious from a technical point of view. Are you restricted from sourcing gravel beyond our boundaries?
The short answer is no. It generally does take some discussion with the adjacent municipality to make sure that they don't have an interest in it first, just so you're playing nice in the sandbox, right? But there's gravel pits on the north side of the river at 876. That one didn't really see the need to pursue it when it was being advertised. Steveville is still there. There's still aggregate resource available for us. Waiting to see what we get out of this exploration process right now. The south end 525, Alberta Transportation used to have a pit down there. I'm sure that's the one you're thinking of. It doesn't have much resource left in it at all. It's very minimal. So that one we don't have much interest in Cypress County either. And there's also some over in Vulcan off of the 539 that there's a private landowner pit a few miles down the road, and there's also a small one right on the southwest corner of the bridge that is pretty well exhausted. But there's aggregate around the outlying areas. The challenge that we face with that is it close enough to a river crossing to make sense out of it? And those are some of the analyses that we're hoping to get out of some of this study, because they are going to be looking at overburden, the trucking distance, the cost to strip and get all that stuff out of there, and is the resource big enough to pursue in the first place?
Thanks. And it was mostly in terms of where we don't have resources. I realize in the southwest we have that pit that we share with DID, so there is a resource there, right? But I was thinking more the southwest, not the southeast. Southeast around the Rolling Hills areas where we're really having to haul a lot of miles. Anyways, so second question, whatever. We gave you some tools as far as changing stuff so you could acquire land for the drainage program, working with some landowners. Was that successful in your getting some of that land or some of the utility right-of-ways, some of the right-of-ways so the drainage program could advance in those areas that we were struggling to get landowners to buy into it?
The tools have been great. There might be a slight retraction from some requests from landowners to have something in writing in that regards. And I said, well, you know what? At the end of the day, it received legal review through the Municipal Government Act. It is said that anything that's encroaching on a road allowance shouldn't be there unless we have an agreement with it. That process identified that Alberta Transportation uses a 30-day notification process for anything that's encroaching that doesn't have a license or otherwise. I'm not certain that I'm going to be getting any signatures on paper, but at least we'll have the standard that if it comes down to it, you'll receive 30 days notice to relocate your property off of county road allowances. If that property is determined that it's impacting motorists and others negatively, then we would absolutely push for that agreement to be signed. But I think at the end of the day, we have the standard set with that policy, with those agreements, signed or not, we can still take them to task. So, and with that, I'm sorry, I only had a quick little blurb in there, but the partnership on drainage in Rosemary, I've got everything except for, I believe it's 1 mile of road that we originally intended to purchase this year, signed. The others are an absolute no. And the EID has got 3 and a half miles of drainage done. So they're about 50% done that project right now, and I've given them the go ahead on all the rest to get it done. So that's where we stand. And I'm looking forward to what the EID has designed for phase 2, so that I can figure out what I need to get acquiring this winter and not waiting until mid-spring to get after this, so we're ready to work when they're ready to go.
Clarence?
Well, Brian's question on gravel piqued my interest a little bit, because it was always my understanding that that one in Cypress, along the just southeast of Rolling Hills there, was basically drained. But whose pit was it there in the scuba and release? Is that our pit or is that an EID pit? And is there anything there?
Good question. I don't have an answer for that one. Yeah, good question. I'm not sure about that one. Transportation had the one in Cypress. Not sure about the other one. And I know that we have some areas that we have interest in through the study that might help us.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that, you know, if there was, and I don't know how that whole area along the 12 mile has been studied, but if there's gravel there, and maybe a little bit further along there's some too, I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm going to prefer to not say a whole lot, because this is business intelligence that we don't want to turn loose to anybody else in case something gets scooped out from under us, even whether it's speculation right now, whether there is or isn't. I think I'll keep that as my position on that one.
Well, that'll pique everybody's curiosity. Anything else?
I'll let you know if I see a drilling rig go by.
What's everybody doing for Thanksgiving weekend out there with shovels, eh?
Seeing no other questions, thank you, Mark. And now, motion for acceptance of the municipal reports. QB moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And we are at post-agenda items. And Kelly, I think we talked about adding an item.
So We kind of glossed over Amanda's request during her visit, and I was close to putting up my hand and making a motion, but I didn't do it, and the time got away. So you recall that she asked us if we would endorse the recreation master plan in Bassano. And that's what I'm suggesting we see how you feel now. I think I have changed my position from the last time that she presented, because remember she was asking for some dollars and for different items that I wasn't sure about. So from her verbal request today, I would be in favor of endorsing the master plan if I had your support as well. Anybody feel differently? Remember, it was about working together, and she wants to be able to present to the recreation groups as a unified front. That's the way I get it. And just logistically in Bassano, I would not go under 90% of our volunteers on recreation boards might be Division 6 residents. A huge number of volunteers on recreation boards are county ratepayers. Molly, would I be out of line with that?
No, I totally agree.
So I think maybe that's her thinking. I don't know of any other agenda other than that for wanting to be able to put the county logo on her presentations. Matt, do you know any other reason?
No, I think that's basically it, right? So we're in together on the ICF. We agreed to share recreation 50-50. My observation the first time around was the ask was coming quite late in the process, and I think that kind of rubbed wrong a bit. We had already passed our final budget for the year. There were going to be some extra dollars there, not a lot of extra dollars, but you know, I think the conversation at the time was, can you endorse the plan without giving the extra dollars? And we're past that now. They've been spending those extra dollars. So yeah, endorsing the plan gets our logo on the header with theirs, and she presents it as a unified front as they engage their user groups.
I certainly think, again, because of changes that could be coming forward, that it's important for us to show that we're part of that, and we are in a big way. So an endorsement of the fact that a lot of our residents are very involved in the community, along with the town working on that. So I'm interested in hearing other people's thoughts. Brian.
Well, I support it. I supported it to begin with because I think it shows that we are genuinely interested in being a partner with the communities that our people frequent and serve, and you know, whether it's volunteers or participants. And it's just, I think it's consistent, and I think it's a great plan if we would support this recreational master plan.
I also support it for another reason is we've always made agreements with Bassano, and they've always been the start of something. We did a fire agreement, and we brought it for the rest of the municipalities. We've done funding arrangements, and it's always been Bassano first, and we work well with them, and I think we should just keep on in that process and carry on with what we've always done. We work well together, and we should keep that.
Well, I was very impressed with her presentation. I thought she was well organized and didn't feel at all that she was trying to pull any wool over anybody's eyes, but they also did it. Sounded to me like a very thoughtful plan, and echo Wayne's comments that they've been very, cooperation there has been open and very straightforward as far as I can gather. So I was surprised that we didn't handle it right away, but maybe we were on time restraints then. But I would certainly vote for it, the endorsement of their plan. Because I just feel that they've done work for it. I think they've thought it out. And
Ellen?
I certainly think we work well together with Bassano, no doubt. But I think maybe this is a decision that new council would like to endorse, perhaps.
Guess there's nothing stopping them from doing that as well. Kelly? Lionel, did you have a comment? Sorry, I thought you might have.
No, I didn't actually, but, I reiterate what Brian said again, and I'm very much in favor of this too. Thought she did a wonderful job. Great presentation.
Anybody else? Anne-Marie or Hubie?
I think actually it was a good plan too, but the last time there was money attached to it. And I think that's why I was hesitant, but yeah, make a motion and I'll vote in favor of it too.
Tracy?
So I just want to confirm, so the money aspect has been taken care of in our other agreements? So it's not a part of the recreation master plan anymore? Is that correct? Or am I missing this?
I think with the endorsement of the master plan, there's a body of work that has already begun. There's work that will continue. I think the budget conversation will happen as part of the new council's first budget deliberation. So I'll be reaching out to Amanda to see if there's any changes because of the endorsement. They were looking at bringing on some staff to provide support to those community groups, work through those engagements. So that's one thing that will be on the next council's deliberations, if any, right? And I haven't confirmed one way or another with Amanda, but today it's an endorsement of the plan, gets us partnered with them on that communication that she wants to get out.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, Tracy?
Yes, thank you.
Kelly?
So then I would make a motion that we endorse the Bassano Recreation Master Plan.
All right. Don't see anybody's other hands up, so all in favor? Opposed? She's opposed. Motion is carried. Thank you, Kelly and Matt. Anything else? Anne-Marie?
Just a suggestion to Matt, and maybe you've thought about it yourself already. Some of the meetings, and maybe you guys go to meetings to have a consent agenda. So when earlier you talked about the payment registry and the checks for payment, strategic plan, direct deposit, all those things could be part of a consent agenda. And that makes the process go a little bit quicker. People can read everything at home, and if there's no questions, then you just make a motion to approve the consent agenda and you're done.
Got it, Matt? Thanks, Anne-Marie, for that. Anything else under information items? Minibus monthly report is there? Nothing in camera, and Matt.
If I could just take a moment of council's time and just pause.
Maybe we shouldn't.
Well, I just want to, as your CAO, recognize the fact that I work for the most successful council in the most successful province in the world. Look at this place. Think of the kilometers of gravel road you have turned into pavement. 1,500 plus services of potable water. It's incredible what you've accomplished. You treat your staff incredibly well. And I don't think they take it for granted. And if they do, they shouldn't. People are treated very well in this county, and I want you to know it is appreciated. We've benefited from your leadership, your guidance, your inspiration, the vision you've brought to this area. These things will persist far beyond any of our lifetimes. I think sometimes public service is such a why did you put your names forward to be on council? Because sometimes it's such a thankless task. What it takes to govern well and to have as cohesive of a team as you have managed to pull off since before I've been here. You hear about drama on other councils, and like I said earlier today, the council code of conduct, you guys behave yourselves so well, you probably could get away without one, because that's the level of integrity and service that you've brought to your roles. So I think all ratepayers, all staff, were very, well, I won't speak for the ratepayers, but I think they should be very proud of the representation that they have had from this group of council. We will miss you, and you are obligated to attend our Christmas party whenever that happens. So thank you. Whether it's the Christmas party or a barn somewhere, we're gonna have to be getting together.
I noticed that Emerson campground last weekend, there's a box there full of books that people drop off and leave in there for people to pick up if they want to read them. I've mentioned it to Kelly. If anybody's not aware of that, check it out or drop off some books for people, because I thought it was a pretty good idea. Yeah. And we got a book out of there too, so we're reading it.
TV yesterday about a park in Calgary where the kids have done it, but it, of course, being younger kids, it's games. They take a game, bring a game, and what it's caused is for some of the kids to hang out around there playing board games and things with one another, which I thought was pretty cool to have that happen. So it's been a slice, you guys. Let's adjourn. 2:05.
Oh, I just had a question before.
Sorry, Trace.
That's okay. It's tough when you're on screen and you're in the room. I know we got an email from Matt here this week or whatever, just wanting to just a touch base on the update with the grant funding and where, if we know if it's been extended or approved, or for the economic stimulus grant fund?
Sure. The short answer is no. The optimistic answer is the minister is entertaining timeline extensions, and a very happy grant advisor assured me we've got really good odds of being granted an extension and finding out soon that we should be approved, but soon has come and gone for me, so we're still waiting.
Right on, yeah, thank you.
Yes, we are adjourned, and thank you, Matt. I don't know if I even said thank you for your kind words, and just so all of you know, we met with Matt on Monday and went through his evaluation with him, and he's got a lot of stuff to pick up.
I don't know, what he just dropped.
Yeah, I dropped my daughter off at school early one morning, and then I headed into work, and Todd texted me. He's like, "What are you trying to do, get a full-time job at this place?" I guess I don't put in the same kind of hours as our ag service guys showing up early in the morning. I said, "No, I'm just I'm picking up on some of the pieces that you gave me during the performance evaluation."
Lionel?
Well, those are very nice words, Matt. But you have to remember that the council has the what you've done for council is more than what we've done for you, or what we can do for you. You, all the staff have made it so easy to be on council that I think our kudos are to you guys.
You were mentioning Todd and the ag guys have to get out this early. This morning I met Mark on the east side of Tilly at 7:45. He was out there. So they work hard. We're proud of them. Thanks for all the work. Yeah.